Picture a high-stakes VIP sanctuary where only the world's most powerful elites are granted entry. Bass-thumping, champagne-flowing, total electric mayhem, then a sudden chilling silence grips the entire room. Every gaze locks in as Michael Jordan stands face-to-face with Rich Paul, his expression devoid of any warmth. This wasn't a social greeting or some polite business gesture. MJ's grip on Rich's shoulder looked ready to launch him through a wall. That icy glare was unmistakable. It was the same ruthless look he used to dismantle Detroit back in 1991. The legendary icon had finally reached his breaking point with the man who has been undermining his greatness for a decade. Rich Paul looked like he wanted to melt away because clever marketing talk fails when the basketball deity is breathing down your neck. Stick around because the wild narratives Rich has been spinning about his airness are absolutely mind-blowing. Behind closed doors, the tension between these two camps has turned incredibly venomous. From linking the icon to the crack era to bold claims that MJ isn't the apex predator, Rich's attacks went way beyond sport. If you think this GOAT debate is strictly about trophies and numbers, you are missing the brutal shadow war happening off-court. There is a calculated strategic campaign by Clutch Sports to reshape the past before King James finally hangs up his jersey. Quite frankly, this whole attempt to shift the narrative is starting to look desperate. To grasp why MJ was ready to storm a Miami gala to confront the agent, you have to hear the noise Rich has spread for years. The real friction ignited with that bizarre Platinum Antlers argument back in 2023. Rich went on a show claiming LeBron's path was steeper because he had to outrun Jordan's legacy from day one. He basically argued LeBron's achievements are platinum tier while Michael's only reached the level of gold. His reasoning? Because everything LeBron did was measured against the ghost of number 23. Who served as Mike's benchmark? Just take a minute to truly wrap your head around that logic. It is a masterful piece of spin, suggesting that dealing with hype is harder than actually crushing every rival for 15 years straight. As if putting a chosen one label on yourself is more taxing than surviving the physical brutality of the bad boy Pistons. That reasoning is absolutely insane. It is a move straight out of a manipulative corporate handbook. Since they cannot match MJ's perfect 6-0 championship record, they try to devalue the weight of those wins. But things took a dark turn on January 6th when Rich joined Max Kellerman to deliver a truly bizarre perspective. He pulled out a board to map out why the Jordan brand became a worldwide phenomenon. Instead of praising the titles or business genius, he credited the drug epidemic of the era. I am not making this up. Paul essentially argued the Jordan legacy was not forged in greatness, but fueled by an 80s street culture addicted to chaos. These individuals lacked traditional careers or high-income roles. They survived solely through street hustles. Right. So his theory is that the drug crisis funneled money from a group that otherwise would not have had a dollar to spend. To quote him directly, people were not buying those sneakers because they truly wanted to be like Mike. They just wanted to emulate the local high roller with the luxury car and the beautiful girl. He basically told the host that Michael's talent was not the driver, but rather the street figures in front of him. He pointed to the influencers of that era as the real reason the shoes took off, rather than the man on the court. That is a blatant insult to MJ's global fanbase, painting the greatest athlete ever as someone who just got lucky with timing. He even went as far as saying actors like Martin Lawrence and Will Smith were more vital to the shoes than Jordan. That was not an objective critique, it was a psychological strike against the very heart of the Jordan brand. Jordan built a $4 billion kingdom on grit and dominance, yet Rich Paul claims it was just a lucky trend. At that exact moment, the patient, reserved version of Michael Jordan vanished completely. You cannot trample on a man's legacy and his supporters just to boost your client's ranking. Those who know his airness understand that two things are untouchable: his history and the fans who defended it. Paul attacked both simultaneously, proving he is much more than just a typical sports representative. As the architect of LeBron's image, he knows he must tear down the gold standard to make his guy look like the new ceiling. He weaponized the era, implying that if James played in 1988, he would be the one with the $4 billion empire. But that ignores the fact that MJ had to build the entire concept of a global icon from the ground up. Prior to his arrival, basketball icons were simply men running in tiny trunks. Suddenly, the landscape evolved entirely. Michael turned celebrities into deities, a shift Rich tried branding as some unified social movement. In reality, that is a crafty ploy to diminish the massive effort Mike exerted to reshape the entire world. He argued that Jordan's commercial triumphs were just about mastering contract percentages, as if that somehow stains his enduring legend. No way, that actually highlights Mike's superior brilliance over everyone, including the superstar Rich currently manages. Specifically, LeBron. And this marks the exact moment the narrative turns purely calculated. Rich marketed the theory that Mike faced no friction, suggesting his fame blew up because he avoided the constant modern media spotlight. He pushed further. He insists modern platforms would have spotlighted Mike's failures, a bold claim from a master at tailoring news to protect his own clients. That hypocrisy resonates deeply. This puppet master, who operates in secret, is suddenly pretending Mike had a paved path. That revealed his true intentions immediately. Rich then insisted that Mike was coddled by analysts like Peter Vexi, portraying 1990s sports coverage as a mere pep rally. Anyone who witnessed that decade knows that claim is fiction. Michael endured nonstop heat, skepticism, and brutal public interrogation. That is a completely different angle, implying Mike had it light because his fiercest detractor was only Peter Vexi. Indeed, 100%. Do you catch the drift? Do you recognize the recurring scheme? Every time Rich opens his mouth, he injects a fresh excuse into the conversation. Whether it is Michael's fortunate era, his specific upbringing, or just having a smoother path. This is a calculated, long-term erosion plan meant to undermine the very pillars of Michael Jordan's mythos. The objective is transparent. They want LeBron's exit to feel like a seamless transition, as if he were always the rightful king. But Michael made a career out of dissecting coverage and sniffing out decoys. He spotted this setup from a great distance. That firm grip in Miami was more than just irritation. It served as a stern message that owning media outlets and spinning tales cannot change facts, regardless of your strategy. Cash cannot recreate the vibe of witnessing him rule 1998. Mark my words, once you actually dissect Mike's production from that time, the cold hard facts are more terrifying than the legendary stories. Thinking that charity gala encounter was a mere passing greeting? You have no idea what truly transpired behind those doors. NBA whispers suggest Mike executed a maneuver that could strip LeBron of every high-level supporter within the league's headquarters. The confrontation unfolded during a fundraiser inside a heavily guarded executive suite in Miami. A deep January evening with heavy bass echoing and rhythmic vibrations. That room was overflowing with basketball royalty and elite industry moguls. We are discussing the ultimate power circle. But the instant Mike entered Rich Paul's personal bubble, that sleek celebrity armor shattered. Rich Paul expects total immunity. He is the strategist who shifts pawns in the dark while hiding behind carefully curated press releases. Michael, though, is pure animal drive. Zero rehearsed lines, zero damage control teams. Those privy to the exchange claim, Michael kept his voice steady. He didn't have to scream to be heard. He loomed there, holding a cold cigar, eyeing Rich as if they were back on the rough streets of Akron, where respect is earned. Mike moved closer and uttered a phrase that sent a literal tremor through that entire exclusive space. You can acquire news outlets and brand deals, but you cannot rewrite my journey with a single soundbite. That sentence erased a whole decade of manipulation. A 15-year empire built by Rich was essentially dismantled in a heartbeat. Bystanders noted Rich was paralyzed, clutching his drink, seemingly wishing for an escape route. He is accustomed to corporate suits who follow a specific etiquette. Jordan operates outside those boundaries, and Mike was just getting started. He moved even nearer to deliver a final blow. You aren't allowed to edit my legacy just because your own narrative doesn't move the needle. That was a masterclass in psychological dominance. The sort of move that collapses a massive campaign in one exhale. Michael signaled his total authority without raising his volume once. If LeBron's path truly outshined mine, you wouldn't be forced to use every broadcast to chip away at my throne. To be fair, he hit the nail on the head. Jordan eventually unhanded Rich, savored his cigar, and exited with his crown firmly intact. No explosive outburst, no spectacle, just absolute authority. Thinking Mike ended things right there proves you have no clue about his predatory, cold-blooded mindset. As Rich stood there trying to regain his composure, Michael was already executing his next stealthy move. Whispers suggest he initiated a call to isolate LeBron from every high-level executive before his final farewell tour even starts. Make no mistake, this didn't start purely with Rich Paul. LeBron has been running his own subtle, indirect campaign of shade for several years now. While he ducks a direct confrontation with Mike, these subtle jabs have been brewing forever. That 2016 Miracle comeback really pulled back the curtain. We all recall that iconic footage where LeBron stared down the lens and crowned himself the supreme hoop legend. Right then and there, I became the absolute best to ever lace them up. Curiously, that specific boast left a bitter taste in many fans' mouths. Across 15 campaigns and 6 rings, his airness never needed to announce his royalty. He let the work do the talking. He didn't just compete, he seized the throne through action. LeBron's self-promotion felt like something else entirely. Sneakily demoting Mike to second place lacked true swagger. It reeked of deep-seated doubt. You only make those claims when you sense the jury's still out. Then he dropped that phantom remark. Back in 2016, he told a major magazine his drive came from chasing a spirit, the spirit haunting the Windy City. It sounds like praise, but peel back the layers. A specter is intangible, a mere myth whispered about rather than witnessed. Labeling Jordan a ghost relegates his career to ancient folklore, stripping away the raw reality of his dominance. This is peak PR strategy. Rebrand the 90s as a bedtime story to make the current era seem more valid. Paint James's journey as the tangible truth while making Mike's reign feel like pure fiction. Stick around, because we're about to dissect those endurance stats with cold, hard facts. For evidence that Mike isn't fooled, just witness how he handled that situation with Big Perk. Kendrick was a priority member of Team Jordan for ages, getting exclusive kicks delivered before the general public. Yet, the moment he flipped the script to proclaim LeBron the king, the supply line went dead. Perk admitted on air in March 2025 that his mail used to be full of unreleased Jordans. Once I entered the media and hailed LeBron as the greatest, those packages vanished instantly. That speaks volumes. Number 23 isn't just some detached mogul chilling on the green. He's a shark who takes every slight to heart. If his former associates attack his status, he sends a clear warning shot back to everyone watching. Pick your allegiance, but don't think you can rock his gear while plotting his downfall. The craziest twist is LeBron attempting to act like he's just another admirer of the game. During a 2025 talk show appearance, he confessed there's zero communication between him and Mike. Sure, everything is fine, we just never speak a word to each other. He spun it as being locked into the game, wishing for a future bond, but let's get serious. Jordan reserves his time for those he genuinely honors. If he's ignoring calls, he knows exactly what's up. Mike remains elusive by design. Letting his guard down would only provide fuel for more media spin. Notice how his agent constantly stresses those 23 seasons? They're leaning heavily on that endurance narrative for a reason. Because the moment the conversation shifts to prime performance, his argument starts to crumble. Comparing their absolute zeniths, LeBron doesn't just trail behind Mike, he's floating in a completely different atmosphere. The agency wants your eyes on the cumulative totals and the sheer volume of games played. Piling up stats is his only path to victory, but true basketball purists know that duration isn't the metric of greatness. It's about the sheer destruction you inflicted on your opponent. Revisit 1988, a year of pure hardwood terror where Mike didn't just claim the most valuable player trophy. He snagged the top defender honors while simultaneously dropping 35 points nightly to lead the league. He was the planet's deadliest scorer and its fiercest lockdown specialist all at once. That isn't just lasting long. During that stretch, he paced everyone in steals with 3.16 per game while rejecting shots like a titan. Now, stack that single year against James's entire 23-season career path. Not one Defensive Player of the Year trophy, zero. He's hunted that specific greatness for 20 years without ever catching it. His nearest brush with that glory was 2013, when Marc Gasol ended up taking the hardware home. His camp has whined about a robbery for a decade, but the data says otherwise. Gasol was the heart of the league's top defense. Step back and see the scale. Mike made 9 first-team all-defensive squads in only 15 campaigns. James managed only 5 in 23 tries. That isn't a close call, it's a total mismatch. There's a massive gap between being a decent defender and being a soul-crushing force who dominates every inch of the hardwood. Let's talk buckets. Mike snatched 10 scoring crowns during 11 full Chicago seasons, while King James secured exactly 1 over 23 years. Just 1. This is where the gaslighting begins, with Rich Paul hitting the airwaves to frame Jordan's offensive lethality as some kind of weakness. He argues that his airness hogged the rock so much it crippled his own squad's potential. That's pure insanity considering that problem resulted in 6 rings from 6 tries. Meanwhile, LeBron's supposed unselfishness has yielded 6 championship defeats. Still, the flimsiest lie the Clutch Camp peddles involves that whole illegal defense nonsense from the 90s era. James obsesses over the zone, pretending Mike enjoyed a red carpet to the rim every game. That's a total fairy tale. They're trying to sell the idea that the 90s were cakewalks while completely erasing the brutal Jordan rules from history. The Motor City's blueprint was basic: punish Mike until he broke. Imagine Rick Mahorn burying a forearm deep into your ribs. Picture Bill Laimbeer aiming for your skull as part of the job. Back then, nobody cared about spacing or free passage. You weren't getting calls for being breathed on. It's hilarious how Rich claims Mike had a smoother ride back then. That defensive rule was just about appearing to stay home. Meanwhile, defenders could literally grab you with both hands legally. Toss peak Jordan into today's soft, whistle-heavy era, and he'd drop 50 points a night easily. Paul uses timing to smear that era. In reality, that decade of professional basketball was an absolute battlefield. Between Riley's enforcers and the bad boys, it was pure gladiatorial combat. Mike didn't just endure, he conquered. Now, let's dismantle their weakest argument, this myth that Mike gave up in 1993. They spin his break as a lack of grit compared to James's 23-year slog. It's clear proof they have no clue how an actual champion's brain functions. Mike didn't walk away. He completed the objective. He conquered the mountain, saw no rivals left, and retired while still the king. He returned, swept 3 more titles, and exited in '98 like a legend. James, however, is still hunting stats in his 40s. Jordan didn't require 23 years to make his point. He solidified his legacy in just 15. As Mike made clear to Paul in Miami, longevity is fine, but never insult the ultimate master of the game. Think back to that gimmick where Rich labels Mike a one-trick pony. The hustle hasn't changed one bit. He'll claim Mike was merely a bucket-getter for clutch moments. It's a coded jab. He says he'd draft James first for a franchise. He sticks with James as his foundation, only trusting Mike when the clock is winding down to 0. It's a subtle insult suggesting Jordan lacked vision or intelligence. That's where the spin doctors fail and the facts take over. Take a look back at the 1991 finals, the GOAT versus Magic Johnson. The press was spewing the same garbage Rich is today, calling Mike a ball hog. So how did that selfish player respond? He put up 31.2 points, 11.4 assists, and 6.6 boards while hitting 55.8%. That wasn't a fluke. That was Jordan demonstrating on the grandest stage that he could dismantle you however he chose. Look at the reality of it. Mike didn't simply defeat Magic Johnson for the trophy. He actually outdished the finest passer in history during the finals, 11.4 assists. They ignore that because it destroys their myth. Rich Paul avoids that particular number like the plague. He prefers recycling that worn-out claim that longevity somehow makes James the greatest of all time. But the media machine keeps insisting that the throne belongs to James. Everyone sees the play. True hoops junkies know the 2025-26 media hype isn't even about the game anymore. It's a massive corporate campaign. The same pundits on the same networks shouting longevity as if playing forever equals being the best. Word around the league is that Clutch has agents embedded in every major network to obsessively promote the accumulation angle. They're desperate to convince you that piling up numbers is the same as true greatness. You can't just count stats and declare it a legacy. That's why that confrontation in Miami was so significant. That wasn't just heat, it was a declaration. The days of Mike keeping his mouth shut while they rewrite history are finished. Here's the bottom line. Who's your guy? The legend who finished 6 for 6 and never faced a Game 7, or the representative leaning on a whiteboard? Someone who needs a podcast tour and a PR blitz just to justify his client's ranking. In the 90s, franchises had to throw 3 defenders at Mike just to stay alive on the court. Fast forward to 2026, and Paul has to manipulate 3 media outlets just to keep James's name in the debate? All right, I want your take on this. Hit the comments and let me know. If these insights ignited your fire, stake your claim among us. Spread this truth to every hardwood disciple. This legend is just awakening. Stay tuned for the next chapter of glory.